soon, so I'll
Okay,
send that
thank
out
you.
to you.
All right. Well, tonight's a good night for class. I see Wendy has the wins of, look at that cute friend.
Yes, my little buddy.
That is adorable. What is their name?
This is Jojo.
Jojo.
Jojo. Hi, Jojo.
It's actually Giuseppe Alessandro. But he goes by
Wow.
Jojo.
He has a big name for a little tiny dog. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. You're getting ready.
You looks good.
Yeah.
You really looks good.
Cute. That's cute. I know. Well, I know Kathy is getting ready for conferences. We just had conferences. What about, does everybody do a spring conference?
Yeah, I just had mine Friday.
Wendy had hers Friday. Laura, what
did mine the week before last.
You did yours. Rashani, how about you?
Don't have one yet. For our age, we don't have one, and they want us to teach us to come up with like a progress report plan. I don't know what to put. Honestly, I don't know what to put in it.
Well,
did you see Tracy's? Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say Tracy's print it out. That is like the best one I have ever seen for a toddler. My boss has tried to make them so many times, and they always end up looking a lot like primary. And I'm like, this is too much. This is like, but Tracy's was amazing. It was so basic, and it was exactly what we're doing. So it just made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's essentially, I mean, we write a narrative about, just like something for, I don't know, like for the baby book, for their baby book, it's not real. I think it's, I don't know, like it's not materials focused, it has to be social emotional. I write something about, also, I think I sent you, didn't I send you guys my conference report? I thought I did in the, like, way back. But it's similar. Tracy's is, and I feel like Tracy's totally, like, I hear her talk and I'm like, yeah.
Looking at it right now. Maybe I can just bring this up to them.
Do it exactly the same way. Yeah, she's, so, but like, to be able to tell stories about, I remember somebody, giving me feedback about, it wasn't even a teacher, it was an assistant in the classroom. She called and she was like, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate the way that the teacher knows my child, like, because she just told a story to the parent about like, oh, and I noticed that they don't like that, they really like their food separated into distinct, and how to, like, places in the plate, and they don't want this touching this, and and like talking a little bit about how that how the teacher supports that, like, oh, and so I made sure that we put this on the side, or I gave him 2 dishes, or I don't know what it was, but that kind of thing really, I think, sticks with parents, like having, Jonathan kind of talked a little bit about that idea too, filling up the love bucket a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think about that?
Real good information.
Who is this? Is this Anne on the phone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's Chris. Is that you, Chris?
It's me.
Yeah,
it's
Chris.
me.
Oh, that's Chris. Okay.
Yeah, here, I'm going to rename
Hello.
you. I finally can recognize the area codes. I know you by your area code now.
Yeah, I think in conferences and talking with parents, having little stories or just little, like a little observation, something unique about their child that you notice or that you're doing, I think it really does make parents feel like you really value their child. You can talk about the typical toddler development and your child does this, this, and this, and that's great, and they need to know that, but that's almost very like doctor-like, it's not as personal. So those little stories or little observations, I think, are really important for the parents. And what parent doesn't love to talk about their own kid? Like all the cute things they did, or some, how you saw them really nice to another child, every time I mention something like that to a parent, their face just lights up. Like that's like they heard that more than they heard all the other stuff I said.
So
Yeah.
we had two parents that didn't want to kind of be involved in like the photo ops and that we do for my observation. And so my lead teacher had me to lead their parent conferences. It was like, really? Put me on the spot. But they really turned out really, really well. By them knowing how much, because it made me observe them more that I couldn't take their pictures. So I knew a lot more about them.
Do you take the pictures to like help you remember what the children are doing, or do you take the pictures to send to the parents, or both? Is it both of those things?
Well,
or none of them?
No, I took the pictures mostly to get to know the children, to follow them, get used to them, because I came in not knowing any of them. And both the lead teacher and the assistants knew everything about them. So I kind of wanted to find out, especially with the parents. It helped me to get to know the kids just so that I can more understand the parents. So the conferences went very, very well.
Tell what was it, just that there was a nice rapport between the parents, or tell like what about the conference did you get some good feedback?
Well, one parent, their little boy I hate to say difficult, but he's very rambunctious.
Spicy. He's a little spicy.
I mean, he's the type of 2-year-old that will run up to the other 2-year-old toddlers and jump at them and knock them down.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen anything like that.
I think my son's in your class, Kathy.
Everybody's concerned about his behavior.
Of course, yeah.
That he was doing. So it was more of a reassurance to her that it's just things that toddlers do, and he wasn't hurting anyone.
Yeah.
So we just kind of made sure that she was calm about that. The other parent who didn't want the pictures taken, she was very, I'm trying to find the word as the right adjective, as John was saying, to describe her.
Yeah.
But it's just the mom. The dad was fine with everything. It was just the mom that kind of didn't want the newbie interacting with her child. No pictures, just no interaction at all. And it turned out that the little girl just gravitated to me. So it was very hard not to work with her. And she was so sweet. She's the sweetest little girl. So I was able to tell her about the development of the child. And I did tell her I took pictures, but I deleted them quickly. I just wanted her to know that I couldn't help but take pictures because she was very smart. She caught on really quickly. She's like 2.5, very independent. So I think as she saw I knew about her little girl, she became more comfortable with asking me questions. So that's what I mean. Both of the conferences turned out really nice. You
kept at it. I think that's really hard. Like that's not, I was listening to a podcast and like one of the gals was like, like she's like talking about her friend and she's like, well, cause you're the kind of person who like, if people don't like you, it's not like you try harder. You're like, well, whatever. And, I feel like that's kind of like how I am a little bit like, well, you like me or you don't like, but I think that with parents, that and like in life, I think that's not bad advice to just say, hey, like I've been really like my 40s have been about getting on a tall horse and riding the high road, which is not always an easy thing to do, but to really like keep going with the parent who's kind of been a little frosty, to like not let it get you down, to keep smiling at them and like trying to win them over is definitely the right attitude. So good for you. That's really great. And it worked. And now everybody feels good.
And now all the rest of them are a piece of cake.
Yeah. Like putty in your hands. Well, I think that you look like you're feeling a lot more confident. I mean, just thinking back, right? Does that like just thinking back to like, when you first started your practicum and you're like, I don't think so. I don't know about this.
No, the parents and the kids are fine. It's the teachers, if they can learn to just step back and not try to help the kids so much.
Yeah.
And quiet down a little bit in the
Oh my
classroom.
God. Amen. Like that's yeah. Well,
It is really hard for the traditional teacher to sit back and observe, not interrupting, that's very hard.
And they tell me that all the time. I say, if it's okay to just step back and let them try. And they just tell me all the time, it's really, really hard. It's really hard. So I just stop. I go to a corner myself. So.
You can be the role model actually. Sit down, take down the notes, what they're doing, what the kids are doing, and then sit down with them and discuss that. That will help.
When I do that, I think they think I'm lazy. I just don't interact. So, but I do that.
That's okay. Let them think that you are okay. You know what you're doing. So do the observation and your observation note and preparing the environment, creating more activities will tell them what you're doing.
Speaking of that, I did want to say they are doing more practical life now. They've started allowing the children to do their own lunches.
Uh-huh.
They're
Yay!
doing a lot more things with just letting the children do a lot more. They just won't release themselves. So they are doing that. So I feel good about some of those things.
Yeah.
Well, that is hard. And I actually had to have a conversation with a gal that we hired not too long ago about the different, because I think it's that kind of thing where that mentality that if you got time to lean, you got time to clean, that a good employee is someone that's always busy, someone that's always looking busy. When the boss walks by, you got to look alert. Like you can't, don't cut me loose. Cause
exactly. Yes.
Work here. And I had to talk to this gal, and it's that idea that in traditional education, traditional childcare quality is measured by the number of interactions between the teacher and the children, and that's how traditional education measures quality, and that's what a quality program looks like. But in Montessori, that's not what it looks like. We measure the child's engagement with the materials, and the quality of the program oftentimes is found in that level of engagement. And anything that you have to say to a child or do with the child, other than get them out of a burning building, if they're involved in something, what you have is not as important. And I think that that's a special, Montessori talked about the spiritual preparation of the teacher in every single book that she wrote. And that's part of what she's talking about is that release, that we have to trust. And hope that our bosses don't walk by at that moment when we're no, hopefully your boss knows that that's good. And a good teacher looks different than a industrious employee. So.
Right.
I was just going to add, in terms of parent conferences, that we look at points of interest for our children, and the children are always a point of interest for the parent. So I think we've all given good examples of how we connect with parents by letting them know how deeply we know their children.
That's a nice notion. It's true. I mean, that they're that child, that really resonates. Yeah. I had my teachers, actually, half of them told me that they want to go to one conference a year. We close in the fall and in the spring. And they're like, let's just do a spring conference. Let's forget about the fall conferences. And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? Do we need to?
Well, I mean, if you have kids starting in September, if they just start in September, then a fall conference is, they haven't been there for very long.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go year round, my school goes year round, so we have kids start in July. So kids that have started in July, by September or by November, which is when we usually have our conferences, it's a little bit more time.
Almost 6 months, yeah.
So there's stuff to talk about there. And, the parents, but I will say the parents whose kids do start in September, by November, they have lots of questions that they want to ask. So there's that. But
what
I don't know.
about the value of baseline?
Like getting, like for the fall to the spring for development.
Like having, even though you haven't had them for very long, it's a way to sort of build on where you started, or to demonstrate progress.
I don't disagree. I think that that's a really great argument for keeping the fall conference. I also, I think, I like the fall conferences, especially because sometimes they're not even about, they're always about the child, but when we're talking about the importance of the relationship between the parent and the teacher, how many opportunities are we really taking to get to know the parent without the child? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we get an opportunity to connect with the parent and develop that relationship in a way that we haven't been able to since maybe that child started in our program and we did a home visit, or, there's a lot of front end work that we do getting children onboarded. And then it kind of tapers off. So, to kind of take those opportunities, we have to create them. And, go ahead, whoever you are.
I was just going to say, that's the value I see in a fall conference, is reassuring the parents that their child is adjusting. And that's what ours mostly were in the fall. Making sure everybody felt good about, where the kids were, and that they could tell at home that the kids were happy here, at our school.
Yeah, it's more of a check-in, right?
Yeah,
Just checking in
Mm-hmm.
and relationship building rather than
We had one little boy
evaluation
for the first 3 weeks.
It's mainly socialization process, how it is going with the children, with the environment, and the teacher and the children. So that's that way the parent have an idea of what is the child is facing in the classroom, because it takes a long time for the children to socialize with the other children. Because when they come first, after the separation from the parents, they have to make a bonding with the environment and the teacher and the children. And it happens, different children have different way they do it. And it takes, some children are very used to, they just go when, outgoing children, they just go there in the environment and start taking materials and exploring them. Some children will not, they will just, hold on to the teacher. So it varies from an individual child. So it's better to have a conference so the parents know what is happening.
I thought about releasing the teachers from the obligation of preparing a progress report for the fall conferences. Like that was, I thought maybe could be a good compromise, right? Okay, well, let's keep the conference, but you don't have to do a progress report. Although now that I heard your rationale, Leslie, about establishing a baseline, I kind of wonder if we shouldn't have something like the primary teachers use Transparent Classroom, and Transparent Classroom is like, it documents the children's progress through the materials and, their development. So there's a lot more communication happening, at least at and in the toddler, what we do is we take pictures and then send them out periodically, like with, a little bit of context, like I like the teachers to go through and add like, like there'll be a little note that goes home with the child about like, oh, today we worked on a group collage, and then the pictures will come so that they can put some context to like what, they'll say, like they might send quotes, like, oh, while so-and-so was working on this project or this work, they said these things, or they painted a picture and said, this is a whale, or whatever. So there's a lot of documentation, I feel like, that's already happening. So you can see that progression. But I don't think that there's a substitute for sitting down in a room with somebody for 30 minutes and talking to them about their kid, their child.
What if that fall conference is more of a parent interview in terms of baseline? Like, how do you feel your child's language skills are developing? You know, what are they saying at home? Or
can I add something?
Oh, yeah.
So what I do in that fall conference is give them a questionnaire, and I can't think of the questions right offhand. Something like, what have you noticed that your child's doing differently? And one of the questions I got, or one of the answers was, they're more independent, or they're putting on their shoes by themselves, or they're doing this. So like it hasn't been a long time, but the parents notice, it's like bringing their awareness to what they have been doing or what they can do for themselves at home kind of thing. So I send out a questionnaire. I do do write up a report of like things that they're doing in the classroom, but it's really brief. So we do meet about that, and then we do talk about what they're doing in the classroom, but it's more of like I give them this questionnaire like a week before, and they turn it into me, so I know what they want to talk about, and I can come up with pictures and examples of things that they're doing in the class to support those questions. And then it's more of like a question answer kind of thing, or like, what do you want? What do you expect your child to learn by December? You know, kind of like that. Does that make sense?
Yep. I think that a pre-conference questionnaire we use them. So I'm happy to share what I use with you guys. But I like you, Chris, I think that questionnaire really helps to frame the topic of the conference, because I do feel like I would rather hear parents talk to me about how they experience their child at home personally than I would rather tell them about the way, unless I have something that really needs to be. I mean, I come in prepared to really have a robust conversation with the parents, but having that pre-conference questionnaire really helps to drive the conversation and make sure that I stay on their track, and that I address all of their questions or concerns or anything that they need to communicate with me about on the front end, so that we make sure that it feels productive.
Actually, I guess now thinking about it, I got it from Tracy at residency.
Oh, cool.
The pre-question. And so it was, and we were talking about more of like having a conversation for the first time and establishing that relationship. And I feel like it was the first time that I had used it, and I think it went really great. I loved it. Instead of
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, are you cold too? Gonna do some snuggling. No, I don't do this as much. Well, we have the parents fill out an ages and stages questionnaire before we meet. And because I think, because then if there is a concern, it's addressed. It's like, we know, and sometimes what I'll do is
we do that too.
So, but if I have a child that the teachers are concerned about, I'll go in and observe, and I'll say, okay, so what I want you to do is make sure that you ask the parents to return an ASQ and an ASQSE, and tell them I'm also going to fill one out for your child, so that we can talk about the results that I get when we meet. Because sometimes parents will fill out an ASQ. I think we've talked about this, but they don't realize how they have really helped their child to be as high functioning as possible. And so they don't experience their child in the same way that other people do, like that. Like, they might not hear the same kind of language delay that we might hear, because they compensate for their child without realizing it. And so ethically, it's correct, I believe, to tell the parents, because the ASQ is a tool that was developed for parents to take for their child. And we can use it as well, but ethically, what I suggest is to tell the parents, I'm going to fill it out. So if you ever have a concern and you're worried that what the parent's result is going to be is not going to align with your result, then I suggest you tell them, I'm going to fill one out. And then what I've had the teachers do in the past is, like, we have a teacher and 2 assistants. And if I am unconvinced particularly, and also I think it's good practice because I've had this experience over and over again that different teachers will get different results with the same child, depending on how, I don't know, depending on how also they perceive that child. So it's good to get a whole
it actually depends on their tolerance and also their childhood experience, so everybody is different, and so interpretation of action of a child or a behavior can be interpreted in different way depending on how we are raised and how, it has to do a lot of cultural thing also. So it's very hard. It will be different. So it's better to have 2-3 opinions about a child, and then we can sit down and come to a conclusion. This is what's happening. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, and I will scan it and email it to you, but I do have like a language, like a normative scale of language development. So when I would sit down with parents, I would want to look at that with them and just say, well, according to this information, it looks like this is kind of where we would expect your child to be. Mm-hmm. They're either at that level, they're below the level, or they're above it. And so it gives like kind of a neutral way to say, hey, this is what I would expect. Like, this is the progress that I've seen. Let's keep an eye on it. Or like, it says here, we would expect your child to have like 20 words. They've got like 400. So obviously language is not a problem at this time for your child. So, so that's another, I always want to talk about language development, social emotional development, talk about self-help skills. So where the child is in the bathroom or at the snack table, all of those things are really important details.
So if they're below, would you make resource suggestions then? Like if the child might need speech therapy, if they're still echoing, or?
We always refer to a specialist. So, because what we are experts in is typical behavior, essentially. So we know what typically developing looks like, but we can't identify, delayed development. So that's always a referral to a specialist. I'm not a specialist. Let's contact one. So we would make a referral to the specialist, like the doctor. Essentially, you would want the pediatrician, or Leslie, like a developmental pediatrician, I think is what Leslie suggests.
Right. And I know we just complete the assignment last week of a reference guide for families?
Yes, the resource guide.
So
resource,
I included in my resource guide several developmental pediatricians in the area, as well as our local infant and toddler program.
Yeah, no, I think that was a really cool assignment. I'm glad that
it was, and it is so helpful, and you guys are fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
everybody, I learned so much. Even I'm living in Maryland, I got some information from you guys, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't believe. Did I say this last time? Stop me if I'm repeating myself. But I found. Please stop me. I found an OT nearby that consults with Montessori programs specifically.
Oh yeah, to make materials for
and they make the
special needs Montessori materials for special needs children.
Did.
Yeah.
So stop.
Did you talk about
we heard you.
Did you just put the, I read about it. I don't remember.
Yeah, I read about it too. Yes.
I remember talking about it.
It's fantastic.
I read it
it's really
so
Did I say it or write it? Oh.
I think that you wrote it on the message board because I was like, oh, that's
okay,
totally
cool.
That's your jam.
That's my jam.
Yeah, that's so cool. No, that's
That was very helpful.
I know I've had people really ask me in a very concerned about the ability or how can how can Montessori adapt to meet those special needs, and I don't really think about it because it's such differentiated learning. There's so many opportunities in the Montessori classroom to find what you're able to do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like whether that's in the toddler classroom or the preschool, but to have materials that are specifically adapted for the Montessori classroom, that's pretty special. I have to go check out the website. Did you look at it?
I'm learning so much more in this course about strategies for kids with challenging behaviors, and in truth, like we're already making accommodations for each child. I mean, we're a very individualized approach, but we can always use more suggestions of creative ways to meet the needs of each child, which is what we're already doing. So I have a whole list of ideas now. So I'm really enjoying the course.
Yay.
Great.
I did watch the videos. I usually do watch them. Sorry, I'm going to look at my screen for a second. I really like Jonathan Wolf, and I feel like he is awesome, but I didn't love his videos for some reason. I don't know. What do you guys think of his, I don't know why. I love him. But I was like, Jonathan,
I feel like the microphone was too close to his mouth, and I could hear every little tongue smack that he made, and it was really annoying and I focused on that as opposed to the content.
Excuse me, maybe that was the the problem was that it was just anyway. Because
Jonathan is actually great. He was my teacher when I did my elementary training. He was one of my teachers. So
he's so nice.
He's great.
I met him in Florida. He's wonderful. I think he's a brilliant man. But those videos, he's got to move the microphone, I think.
I know.
That was the setup, so it's not his fault.
No, it's not. We can't hold it against him.
We can't.
The video, I think I got used to the videos just being 3 to 6 minutes, just a little short. And then I was like, oh my God, 15 minutes, Jonathan talking.
Yes.
And then you go to the next one. But
what he was talking, it's very interesting though,
I know.
It was interesting. Topic was very interesting.
I found it better to watch the PowerPoint, and what I did is I left him and I just heard him, and then I passed the slides on the PowerPoint, so that was easier for me.
I missed the PowerPoint. Where was the PowerPoint?
It is at the end of the videos. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
so
there you go.
Him, and then you.
I didn't get there, so. I'm like,
I went to the end and I didn't see it.
Yeah. For some reason, sometimes. I'm sorry, Leslie. Go ahead. Were you talking?
No, go ahead.
Me. Oh, okay. For some reason, sometimes when I'm watching the videos, I'll do so many of them that I have to stop for some reason. And then when I come back, all of a sudden there's videos that I didn't watch, up farther where between ones I've already watched that weren't there before. Either I'm losing my mind or something's glitchy with the Moodle every now and then, because I literally don't see these videos. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I missed 4 videos. How did that happen? I don't know. So maybe
sometimes mine, one time or a couple of times it happened with Tracy's videos where I watched part of it and then I couldn't watch the other because I had to leave for work or whatever. And then I came back and it wouldn't let me watch the rest of it. It was not available for download or whatever. It was like, wait, I missed the whole 10 minutes of that.
I know that I've gotten emails from Mark, that I'm assuming everybody's getting when the uploader is glitchy or when the website's glitchy. And so I think that it stands to reason that sometimes they are doing some sort of an update, and like Laura, you just maybe got caught in that.
Okay.
My suggestion is to like either email me and I'll push those those tech kind of questions out to CGMS, or I can, Terry's like kind of my, I just like email her.
Yeah. Anything that technical questions, just dump it on Terry and she'll take care of it right away.
But I'm sure that they track. I mean, they really do try to make it better. Like that's one thing that I will say about CGMS is they're not like, like that's just the way it's going to have to be. Like, and I've worked for plenty of places where they're like, oh yeah, I know that the air conditioner doesn't really work way back there where we put all the AC or the IT people. And so, here's a couple heaters and just prepare for the air conditioner and the heaters to just duke it out while you're in the classroom. Like that's so that's a true story.
The CGMS is not like that.
CGMS is not like that.
No.
Like, I will fix
in the beginning, I had a lot of problems with the video watching, and it was not coming. It was not, but now it is really better, much better.
Well, what do you got? What's going to help the most here? I have one of the things that I have that I can share with you is that I was talking to Eugenia about it. Like we have a like guidelines for transitions. So, when is your child ready? When do we usually transition children from the infant room to the toddler room? And what are we looking for? And what can you do at home to support? And there's another document that's like how, from the toddler community to the preschool. If a child is 3 and like typically developing and we've been doing, the best we can to help them become independent in the toilet and they're not quite there, they go. I don't hold them up in the toddler community. That's not if they're otherwise ready, then we just kind of Hail Mary and like hope it resolves quickly and then they go. The guidelines don't say that though. That's like a case by case basis. But they're a really neutral way to talk to parents about the expectation that we have of the child when they go to the next level and how we support them at school and how they can support them at home. Do you guys have, do you use those kinds of tools?
Mercedes, in terms of toileting, how do you get the primary teachers on board with that child that is completely ready, but they're not toilet trained because their parent is not doing it at home?
Well, the parents have to do it. I mean, that's like, and I mean, I guess they could lie to me, but the 3-year-old child, they tell you, you ask them, do you wear a diaper at home? They'll tell you if they do or they don't.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the child, if I have suspicions, I'll just ask them, but so that's a trickier one. I mean, I feel like that's maybe that's just not a fit between the parent and the family and the school. If the parent is not doing their part at home to support, I mean, that's there is an expectation, and I'm clear about that expectation on the front end, that there's going to be a point where the rubber hits the road and you just kind of have to take I'm fine taking the lead. I've always done it. Like, I know that some schools say like, oh, well, first the parents have to do it at home. That's not my way. They come in underpants. I put them in underpants. That's just not because that's how we do it at the school. And I don't need the parent support at home, I don't think, to do that. But there's a point that we do need the parents. Usually they come on board after they see the progress that the child is making at school, if they're not totally there yet. And then we can do a lot of talking about what does it look like? I know that it's like, we're so isolated now as parents that we don't see how people do things anymore. I mean, like you guys, like Casey, Rashani, like you guys are at a real advantage because you have, your child in school where there's all that you kind of, you know what to do. The parents don't know. They don't know what that looks like. Nobody uses cloth diapers. People don't have the experience of having like aunts and cousins and, you know, where everybody's kind of doing that all together. So they need us to explain to them exactly what it looks like to potty train a child at home. And like, you know, a lot of people have dogs. There's a template for this. You know, you already know what to do because you do it with your dog. I mean, you pick up the dog poop just like you're going to pick up your kid's poop. And you have to prepare and invite, you know, you go on the walk, you take your plastic bag. It's the same kind of thing. You know, you just have to be prepared. You have to prepare your environment.
When you have a school that changes policies, the school that I'm at now, they used to not take children who were not potty trained. But they didn't set up a policy. Now they're taking children, even if they're not potty trained.
In the preschool?
But they never created a policy. So all of the teachers are like in the toddler area anyway. They don't want to deal with the potty training part of it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it at all. And the poor parents, they're ready to start their children. The children are showing interest. But in our school don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have anything to do with it. So it's like the child is in the middle and it's like, no, you're in diapers. And then everybody's bringing pull-ups and they don't want to tell them stop bringing the pull-ups. So it's just a big ball of confusion there with the poor kids and their toileting.
So that is unfortunate. I guess I don't quite understand. So did they just not have a toddler program or do you mean that they don't want to help the children potty train? They just want to diaper them?
Right. They don't have a toileting policy for the toddlers in the school. And so now they don't want to start toilet training, even if the parents have started. They don't want to do it. They don't want to deal with it.
I've never heard that of a toddler classroom that won't help. Toilet training is part of being a toddler teacher, right?
That caretaking is the curriculum, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, toileting is one of the biggest
those
self-care
teachers should not
skills.
be in the toddler's room. They should not be working with toddlers.
Yeah.
If I'm the administrator, my teachers will not work in the toddler's room if they are not willing to do that, because that's part of their job.
I'm happy to share our protocol. We have a toileting protocol. We have a protocol about how to do standing changes because that's
exactly yes.
And I have those protocols.
Yeah, I'll send those too. I'm going to send the pre-conference questionnaire and then I'll send the guidelines for readiness if that's helpful to move to the next level. And then the toilet protocols. Yeah.
They'd rather change diapers than assist with toilet learning.
It's so funny. It's just a little bit more work on the front end for a bigger payoff.
Let them go and work in the infant room.
Yeah. I see.
But I feel like
for them.
Is more with the primary teachers. We'll have a child that has moved up to primary and they have and the child has an accident, bring them back to the toddler classroom. They want nothing to do with toileting.
That's shaming.
That's embarrassing for the child. That is very embarrassing for the child. And you cannot do that. And it will not help them to build their self-esteem.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
It is unacceptable.
It's just that it's the way that it is. I mean, I think part of it is that there needs to be enough support for those teachers. You know, like I know that the convention for primary classrooms is 2 teachers and 25 kids. Is that tell me though, what's your setup, Leslie?
Oh, there's a lead and 2 assistants.
And how many children?
25.
So that's my model, and I think so that's enough support, I believe, for a teacher to be able to support a child.
Yes.
While changing them in the bathroom,
actually, for primary, you don't have to change them. You just
hold
stand there, and the child will do it. You just assist them. That's it.
Yep. Right. Yeah, and I assisted 2 children in the toilet today with BMs, and then I emailed them their parents and was like, so I just don't want you to miss the bag of BM that is on the hook because it's hot today and you don't want to leave that out for a whole night. But then and I don't know that parents can really do anything at home necessarily about building their child's independence in the toilet at school, other than not ever putting their child in a diaper except at night to go to bed. I mean, like that's, when my son was 3 and 4, I think he still wore like a nighttime diaper. But I wouldn't ever put a diaper on him other than that. Like that's, so, making sure that parents are kind of doing their due diligence at home. And then like, they can also talk to their children about like, hey, poop in the toilet. Like at school, you poop in the toilet.
Do you have something in your parent handbook about the parents' role in toileting? Because we have 3 students that are completely toilet trained at school, but their parents insist that we put them in a diaper before they go home, and they refuse to do toileting at home. For various reasons. And they have been educated.
So they're in your toddler classroom?
They're in the toddler classroom, but these are children that could have moved up to the primary classroom in December, but didn't because they weren't toilet trained. But they are toilet trained in our classroom, but they're not at home.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like there's a point at which the teacher initiates a conversation with the parents, and the conversation's kind of like, it's like, hey, it's time to start sending your child to school in underpants, and for us to start sending your child home in underpants. And if you're worried that they might mess like wet on their car seat, I suggest you put a towel down, and we'll put a diaper wrap over them or a plastic pants over their underpants if you're really worried about it. But in my school, I think I've told you guys this, the protocol is you bring your child in cloth and they go home in cloth, because I want to live in a world where I just don't see a plastic diaper. And also because that sends a message to the child, I believe in what is happening at school.
Right.
I want to be consistent with what is happening at school. So that's how I explain it to the parents. I don't tell them my attitude about plastic diapers, but because that's the most true thing, right? That really we're asking them to be consistent with our philosophy and our practice.
Would that be beneficial to have in the parent handbook, and to go over an orientation that once toileting is successful in the classroom, that it's really expected that parents follow through with that at home?
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. We're more specific about it in our readiness guidelines for the preschool, but typically those kinds of conversations are just initiated from the teacher, and we have this a really like clear attitude, I guess, in the parent handbook. The expectation is that like the work of the toddler is freedom from diapers, like that's they want to be free from them. Like it's really looking at that. It's fanny freedom, right? You get to you don't have to be imprisoned by your diaper anymore, and that's healthy, and that's sanitary. So it's just I don't know that it's. I think that parents are afraid because they just don't know what it's going to look like, and I think that there's a point that the parents are just going to have to face that you have to go out in public in underpants, and and that might be messy. You might have to like take a diaper bag again, you might have to go and use a public toilet, and
I think I still take a diaper bag.
Yeah. You still take it
for my son.
That's really
for my son, not me.
No, I know.
I think
but he's been wearing underwear for a while.
Yeah, sorry. One of the obstacles for my parent is that she is afraid of germs, like not having her daughter use public toilets. So I think that's interfering with her using it. So I recommended one of the portable toilets, like a travel toilet.
The Portet, yeah.
Yes, portable
the Portet.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. That's a great idea.
I show the parents, this is my Jerry doll, like if they to hold their child like this over the toilet, like just to crouch down to put their child like their back to your belly, so they don't even have to touch the public toilet. Like you can just over the toilet. and they'll eliminate into it. That's how I used to do it with my son. The portet is I see those in the trunks of a lot of the families.
That's what I do still.
Yeah, you have a portet.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that word. So do you notice
everywhere we go, she has to go potty everywhere we go. And to go to work, I have a long drive, and every day she has to go. I think it's just like her thing to do. And there's no way in the mornings I can find a restaurant or like anywhere for me to stop. So now I just pull over, take her to the trunk, do what we gotta do, and then get back in the car. It's the easiest thing to do.
Good idea.
It reduces stress.
Easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, go ahead.
Policy for your school, a toileting policy
For the teachers, yeah, I will send it. Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I would like to have that too.
Yeah. I'll send it to you. I might, gosh, I don't know if I have it an electronic version. I might have to take a picture and send you the picture. But yeah, I have like how to do standing changes. This is how you change a child.
Yeah, we did that. Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking that if there are teachers who are completely unwilling to even do the toileting thing, to go back even farther, besides the fact that, you have to because that's part of being a toddler, if they are not willing to do the toileting thing, then they probably only want to do diapers because it's fast. So they're completely missing the point of that caregiving routine when changing diapers. So to go back even farther with them and explain, that this is not just something you get done real fast. Like there's a purpose, there's a process, there's so much more to it than just changing a diaper.
So
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, so to that point, it's difficult for me because I'm coming into something that's already been established, and the lead teacher has already made it known of certain things. This is the lead and the two assistants. They're doing it their way. And I feel like I'm interfering and trying to change what they're used to doing. So it's difficult for me to say, this is the Montessori way when they haven't been doing the Montessori. Even though the lead teacher is Montessori certified, but it's a lot of things Montessori that she's not doing. And I don't want to be the one pointing it out.
Interesting. Well, I think what Laura said is true. And I think also that once the teachers realize that it really isn't that much more work to work on toilet training than it is to do diapers, and actually it's less work in the long run. Yes. That like right, I don't know, what do you got? Like I it's been so long, but I really don't think that it's more work to change a poopy underpants than it is to change a diaper. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Definitely not more work, especially if the children are in cloth, because I mean, if a child has a BM in their underwear, I'm wearing gloves, so I help them take everything off, swish their underwear. If they're wearing cloth, I swish their diaper. Like, I don't send home gobs of poop on stuff. So that to me is the same. I think it's exactly the same. I don't know.
I think the only way that it differs is that we tend to, when children are in diapers, not change them as frequently, not change them when they're a little bit wet. One of the assistants in my classroom, when it's her turn, we have specific times of the day where we're in charge of toileting, and the three of us do it all completely differently. Like we do not have a toileting procedure. I'm the slowest of the three, crazy. And they're all irritated with me. But I feel like it is important, and it's important that I do it slowly, and I have good rationale for that. But the assistant will just approach the children without invitation and just grab their crotch and to see if they are wet or dry. And if they are not wet upon inspection, which you wouldn't really be able to tell, if they're not soaking wet, she doesn't invite them to the toilet to change their diaper. So that in that way, it's a lot easier. Yeah.
Easier, but they will have a rash. The children will have rash for.
Yeah.
Well, and how does that tell them appropriate touches?
I know, right?
Grab you, and
I'm very frustrated.
That's
exactly.
that. Honestly, that would drive me nuts. Like I really, it's so important that the teachers talk to the children before they touch them. You know, like even the babies. You know, it's funny because I said that to a group of Montessori teachers, you know, about asking permission, you know, may I pick you up? And she's like,
yes, yes.
But not babies, right? And I'm like, well, especially babies, you know, like,
yes.
And like this attitude that what they can't understand, like there's actually research that says as soon as that has measured the baby's responsiveness to a mother going down to pick them up, and that they they prepare, they know what's happening. They are just without any words. So think of how much more powerful it would be to tell them, and then not even just like for development's sake, but because of consent. So that, can you talk to them?
Well, it's a struggle because you know, I've talked to the administrator, who's also my supervising mentor, and it was also brought up in my field consultation that having a second assistant that is not Montessori trained is actually interfering with the progress that the children are making. And the administrator, her response was, it's just an extra set of hands to help out with things like diapering and snacks and things, which shows that she has no understanding of what we're doing in the toddler classroom, like what the curriculum is.
Right.
And, you know, and the field consultant tried to explain that in a brief way, you know, sort of that those are the most important learning opportunities that we can provide. And that the assistant is not interested in learning Montessori methodology in any way. So
it's just not a choice. I mean, I don't give people a choice, you know, if they like, oftentimes I'll take on someone who who seems like a good fit, but doesn't have the Montessori, because sometimes I would rather just train you, because I can't train like the previous Montessori out of you, you know, like kind of a thing. Like, so I'd rather start with a fresh slate and show them what to do. But it's not a choice. When you come and work in a Montessori school, you're gonna follow the Montessori program, and you're gonna do it the way that the way that's consistent. And that's and we're not talking about, you know, what's Montessori and what's not Montessori. We're talking about how does the program live the Montessori values that it says that it embraces, you know? So if a Montessori value is independence, how are we living that value? If a Montessori value is respect for the child, how do we live that value? Where's the evidence of that in our program? And so those are that, instead of saying things like that's Montessori, it's like that lets us have a more honest conversation about what are we really doing here? What's really
right. And is there a different expectation for a toddler classroom versus a primary classroom? I feel like some administrators think of the toddler program as more of a daycare than primary, that there's just a different expectation there. So that they don't need to put people in that classroom that have the same amount of training because it's a daycare.
Everyone in the toddler classroom should have their Montessori training. Honestly, like the model in primary doesn't work the way that it does in toddler, because primary is materials focused. You need a specialist who knows how the materials work, but toddler is not materials focused. The curriculum is the caregiving rituals, and so everything in the environment is a presentation.
Actually, you know, Leslie, most of the administrators, are not trained with infant toddlers training program. So that's the key thing, because when you have early childhood training, you won't realize what the infant toddlers are doing. It's very hard for them to, you know, visualize the whole activity going on in the infant toddlers program. So that's the problem a lot of schools are having right now, because they are not, the administrators are not, some of them even not Montessori trained, and it's very hard to work for the trained teachers under those supervisors. But some of them are only early childhood trained, and they are giving the infant toddlers teachers the advice that they have learned. They don't realize that's a different sensitive period.
Right.
It is not absorbent mind, unconscious. It's not conscious absorbent mind. So it's very hard. So when you have that kind of administrator, you need to sit down and go over the philosophy and pedagogy. That's the only way you can, deal with it. And every program should have some, at least 3 or 4 faculty meeting or something for that, so that those teachers who are not trained get some idea what they're supposed to be doing, what is expected from them. And also when they're were hired, they should have been told, these are the things that you have to do it. It should be in the, like Kathy said, it should be in the school policy that this is what we do. This is expected from you as a infant toddler teacher and a primary teachers or elementary teacher. Those expectations are different.
Right. I know CGMS also has like 10-week courses, right?
Yes.
One called Montessori Beginnings.
Yeah.
I tried to get my administrator to take it.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I tried.
And I got kind of a funny reaction from an administrator that I met. And he was like, I don't often meet administrators that have infant toddler credentials. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate since it is the important age of all the ages. Anyway.
Yeah, when I go for field consultancy, same thing I have observed, that the administrator doesn't have any training and doesn't understand what is going on in the elementary classroom, what the teacher is struggling, or the infant teachers, what they are struggling with. It's very hard. It's very hard for the teachers.
It is. And I actually do a lot of in-house training. So when I have a group of new kind of recruits, then, everybody has to take a certain number of training hours a year anyway. And so I just tell them, you're going to take them with me and I'm going to train you how to do things the way that I want you to do them. So I have a few different talks that I give. One is called Caregiving Rituals as Curriculum, and the teacher as a learner, how we use observation to inform positive discipline and guidance. There's one about foundations for early learning and like how to make connection, why the relationship's so important. So like just the kind of basic, but I will say that it's a really profound time commitment for me personally. Because it's 15
and it is good for the staff development also.
It is. It's good. Well, we're over time. I'm excited about next week because there's a lot of like circle time stuff, and I was practicing with my ukulele. Maybe I'll bring it to class tomorrow, and we'll teach you guys or Latin next week, and we'll sing songs. So unless there's anything really last minute burning, you got to talk about it. I'm gonna say I love your faces. I'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Good night.
Bye.
Everybody
Good
take
night.
care.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.